It's the Two Strange Podcast.
Okay, Two Strange Men. We've had a false start. It doesn't matter. We had such a good open as well.
Oh, like the best open ever. It's like the Tenacious D. Like they have the best song ever.
Yeah.
We basically had that.
Yeah.
Like we had the best opening ever, and you're never gonna hear it.
Yeah, this was not the greatest. This is not the greatest opening in the world,
Yeah.
but it is a tribute. Yeah.
You got there just as I was gonna say. It is a tribute.
Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. It was really good. It had the whole skit about me with my trousers down. You'll never
that bit
know.
we could forget.
No,
But
no.
my bits were. You just have to take my word for it. They were really funny.
Either way, what we came to the conclusion was we're halfway towards possible not failure with the podcast because we have a number of different free episodes and we've got some Patreon episodes as well, and it's all great, isn't it? It's going well.
It's all good stuff. We're settled. We're feeling good.
Yeah.
We're on a ball, baby.
All we need is the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about quite recently is the fact that how many celebrities have podcasts now. Yeah, and here we are. I just want to. Well, I just want to reassure everyone that we are actually celebrities. You just haven't heard of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're just unfulfilled stars.
Yeah, exactly. And you can help with that, much like you can help with Demi Moore's stardom at this point in time by checking out The Substance. What a cracking film.
Oh, what a beautiful, disgusting, gross, amazing piece of cinema.
Yeah. There is literally so much to talk about with this film. It's really good. Quite like Birdman, I could start by saying it made me feel things, but it's more positive. My approach, essentially, this time, I'm not going to be sitting here just like ranting about films in a negative way all the time.
Well, this is one of the films that I got to the end, and call me a sentimental fool if you want, Carl, but I got to the end, and I almost felt like clapping. Like if I watched that in the theatre, going back to that, I would have stood up. That it was incredible. Like it had a way of making me feel things, but also really making me conceptualize. And everyone's performance is fantastic.
Yeah,
the idea is well presented. The mise en scène is incredible.
Yeah, it's really good.
I loved it.
Yeah. So there's loads for us to talk about, and I don't really know where to start. I think one thing we should perhaps put out there straight away is the fact that this episode is coming out just after we've had the Oscars.
Yes.
And I don't want us to do this sort of yearly thing where we just sort of talk about the Oscars. Like, I've never really cared about the Oscars other than... I don't know, like, it's just really annoying. It's like people put too much stock into it. Like, I don't think it's that great, to be honest with you.
I kind of avoid it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've got to a point where I'm like, when they announced, the best pictures and best films, I sometimes avoid them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are pretentious.
Yeah. I think also, because of our subject matter is the idea of keeping it with strange and strange topics and strange films accompanied with them, I don't think we're really going to have that opportunity to talk about Oscar films a lot. They don't really sort of go into that. But The Substance, it's definitely a strange film, isn't it? There's got so much going for it in regards to having something to say and, its technical execution, really top notch, introducing a new director, female director who's penned this and also directed it as well. There's so much to talk about. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a companion episode where we look at the idea of meta, and I'm going to increase that to consider metamodernism. Okay, so episode after this, we're going to jump in and look at metamodernism alongside the idea just generally of what meta is. So we're only going to lightly kind of talk about that here, but there's so much more to talk about, isn't there?
Oh, we could probably do several episodes just on the themes of this, right?
Yeah.
And just of how they unpack it in the film. And there's one sore point for me, and I want to get it out of the way kind of quickly, because I want to gush about this film.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use the word gush because I'm just remembering the scene, the explosion at the end. I feel sick. I might throw up right here and there.
I mean, stuff gushing out of her back, like, so that makes me think of.
Birthing her from her back is like the most visceral thing I've seen in ages. Yeah. But there was one element to this, right? And it was kind of the crux of the start of the whole film. And it was this Demi Moore's character was an old star, right?
Yeah.
And to believe her plight, you kind of have to believe that she's lost everything, right? She's still incredibly beautiful, though.
Oh, okay.
Like, incredibly, incredibly beautiful. And they're just like, oh, you know, you're a washed-up old hag, sort of. But, like...
But the thing is, right, okay, so... Sorry, I'm cutting you off there because I just want to capitalize on what you've just said there, all right? Now, the idea that we have to root for Demi Moore is not like... I mean, like, she's not a protagonist in a sense. Like... we are simply seeing her downfall, and we're not necessarily meant to relate to this person because she kind of like the Birdman character, she doesn't ever really like learn from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, even in the last moments when she's just this blancmange splodge, she crawls up to her star and disintegrates into the star. You know, it's another character whose lesson is never learnt, you know, and yeah, like the fact that she's saying you're washed up and everything like that, and everyone else is saying, she's washed up and everything like that. It doesn't matter that we as the audience go, well, she's actually really pretty still, you know? It doesn't matter either way.
It adds to that level of like absurdity, right?
Yeah, but also what's the social commentary going on with this film, you know? I mean, we can jump straight into that. Like, what's the main point you want to take away from this?
Well, it's the deconstruction of the cult of celebrity, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this idea of, I mean, the one thing I kept bouncing around in my head when I was making notes was like, so if you want to be successful, be young and basically do softcore porn.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That was like the big kind of takeaway. So you basically just thrusted her hips for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you then make comparisons between Anora, okay, let's just get that out of the way before we actually move on proper. I've mentioned the Oscars, but it's like, come on, like this film, it just all of the stuff that happened with the Oscars just adds to this narrative so well. It's like a Nostradamus film where it predicts its own failures.
Imitating life.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's really good. And it's only in these sort of situations that I actually appreciate something like the Oscars, you know? Because, I mean, like, let's break it down. Like, before we go into the film, The Substance, we are going to talk about that. Let's just go and talk about, like, the whole narrative there, all right? So, let's break it down. So, you've got the film Anora. Okay?
Yep.
Which is essentially Pretty Woman, but with Russian families, etc.
Yeah. And much more boobies.
A lot more sex involved in that story of a call girl, an escort at least, that makes it with a successful man who wants to change her, etc., or something like that. You know, that was more the case with Richard Gere's character as opposed to, you know, Vasily or whatever his name is, the Russian kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as a film, it had a lot of padding. We both described that, didn't we? It was padded. The runtime could have been an awful lot shorter.
I mean, I unfortunately couldn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I watched about an hour 30 of it.
Yeah.
And I would say that there was probably 30 to 40 minutes of content within that hour 30. I don't know if it got better.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if you break it down structure-wise, you had, you know, lots and lots of sex and nudity and stuff like that, introducing the escort, and then she meets the Russian kid who's the son of an oligarch, etc. Okay? And then they get married, they have a relationship, they get married, and all of this part is super stretched out.
I've got a very important question for you, Cal, and this might be the most important information I have all day.
Yeah.
Did she bonk the bodyguard?
Oh, okay. So I run out of time because I was watching the film before my first session, hoping that no one would come in when there's breasts on the screen. But yeah, no, I didn't get right to the end, but I think that's where the story goes, okay? Like right at the end, after they have the annulment and everything like that, he's, what's the word? He's like, you know, putting his...
talking about?
He's putting his coat on her while she's sleeping on the plane when she's going back and other such things like that. There's a lots of 2 shots of them together whilst Russians are arguing in the background and stuff. He sticks up for her at some point in time. So it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it's going to go. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it for everyone. I can't this time. I simply can't.
Yeah.
But it picks up at the end. But look, okay, putting out there, okay, flaws with the film. I'm not even talking about the other Oscars that it got. I'm talking specifically about the fact that it won Best Actress over Demi Moore. It's insane.
It's criminal. It's actually criminal. And I don't say that a lot. I don't get overly opinionated about the awards because I don't really care about them. But Demi Moore gave everything to that role.
Yeah.
Like, she was incredible. Like when she started to dishevel herself, I really believed it.
Yeah.
I believed that kind of arrogance of like old celebrity, old stuff.
Yeah.
And then when she started to lose everything, she really sold me on it. I thought she was incredible. And I thought, like Dennis Quaid said in an interview a couple of weeks prior to the Oscars, she's got it in the bag.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believed that. I was like, Dennis knows what's up.
Yeah.
It's just a massive shame. And I don't want to poo-hoo the actress's performance in...
Poo-hoo. That is a Tomism, isn't it?
Wow. Wow. This is the level of maturity that we have, folks. But I don't want to kind of, you know, knock on the door for the lady that won it, but it's not deserved.
Yeah. And that's not any fault of her own. She's
No.
not making that decision or anything like that. But it's just crazy. It's just this film, Substance I'm talking about. This film was about a aging star who's being replaced with someone new that looks surprisingly like her, that can fit into the role of her. And then you have Demi Moore losing the Oscars to Mikey Madison or Mickey Madison, who looks like Demi Moore, as in same sort of body type, hair color, etc., in a role that's very similar to Striptease, I guess, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You know, a film where she was paid an awful lot of money to get her kit off, etc. It has obviously influenced the film, The Substance, because of the similarities.
Yeah.
She's been perfectly cast for this role. And then she's just replaced. She's actually just the actual thing that happened in the fictional piece was then retold in reality. It's mental.
I can't wait for 35 years' time when Mickey does a body horror and it all just comes back again.
Yeah, and just Demi's there, like, winning for something. And she's still looking great. How? I don't know. But yeah. Oh, my goodness. It's a lot to unpack.
Yes.
And then, like, you know, alongside that, like, I tried to, like, divorce myself from the broader narrative. Like, why is this film winning so much stuff? And, like, you know what? Like, in America, they're all sort of like, you've got the Trump, you've got the Trump administration and stuff like that, and, like, you know, supposed links to Russia and stuff. And then you've got this film that is like, you know, it's almost like a foreign language film in that there's so much Russian speaking going on. The connection's there. It's just, I don't want to believe that that's the case, but life can be that corrupt that is literally like people are maybe acting as sycophants or they're getting paid. I don't know what, but yeah, something's going on there. Like, I don't know.
And, you know, I don't want to say that the film was bad. I certainly thought the film was bad for the first 30, 40 minutes, I'll be honest. Yeah. But when it started to pick up, I think it's an okay film.
Yeah. Well, as soon as the Russians actually get involved, then it picks up.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm not going to get into the idea of this winning best script, best director, best editing, whatever else it won. I'm just focusing on that. And I just think that at least is mental. Absolutely mental.
But I think everyone agrees. The discourse I've seen on the internet is very much like, how? Why?
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but it very much pushes the narrative of the film. It makes the film so much more important because
Absolutely.
we're seeing this in real time as well.
Yeah.
And it's a prevalent thing within the film industry and the TV industry.
Yeah.
And it really shines a light on how kind of like toxic it can be.
Yeah, totally.
At the upper level.
Yeah, totally. Maybe it's a reaction to that. Maybe because this is like a film that puts a lens on toxic behaviours, and it's beyond the Me Too movement. This is separate to the Me Too movement, because at no point in time was Demi Moore like sexually assaulted or anything like that. Like no one was coercing her through sex to, you know, for favours of fame and stuff like that. It was her own choice. They were simply pointing the camera on her and asking her to do those things. So it's like, if anything, it's still making full commentary on the male gaze, etc. But it's separating itself from the idea that Hollywood and like the people behind the scenes are toxic because they're doing these evil things. Yeah. It's the acceptable evil things that they're doing that this film comments on.
Yeah. And they could have easily done that with Sue's character, right? Like, came for an audition, they could have had someone grab her bum, but they didn't do that. And I think that was purposeful.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't... That has media attention. Everybody knows that was a thing that happened with producers and certain directors. What we want to talk about is the stuff that you think is acceptable.
Yeah, totally.
And Dennis Quaid's character, for me, although he didn't feature prominently, like he wasn't in every scene, he was incredible.
Yeah.
It was incredible. And that smarmy kind of like producer vibe, they never technically cross the line, right? But they're not good people.
No, yeah. There was a couple of scenes that really stood out to me that made me really love the sort of absurd level that it can like reach to. Now, first of all, he's playing the character almost as a absurd pastiche of these sort of people. Like his mannerisms and everything like that. I was trying to pinpoint, like in his first sort of like major sort of scene where he's on the phone, he's taking a piss. Demi Moore's, I think, in the cubicle listening in or something like that, and he's talking about like, oh, we got to get rid of her, rah, 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 rah. And his voice is literally like rah, 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 rah. And it reminded me of a mixture of like some of the like crazy roles that Nicolas Cage has had, but also like some voices that Trey Parker from South Park would do. Do you know what I mean? Like there's I'm sure there's someone else that it reminds me of that better matches it, but it's just an amalgamation of the two. And like he's then the grotesque eating early on, but also the playful way that they all skip away when all of the booby ladies come out through the corridor at the end. They're like, ugh! Like boys in a playground or something like that, like just giddy. And it's just it's not a subtle performance, but it subtly ramps up towards what the message is.
Yes. And I thought it was really beautifully done. And at no point did I, although it was hyper reality, right? And it was over the top, but I didn't feel like his performance was over the top.
No, of course not.
It was believable.
Yeah.
I believe that there are producers that are that so far up their own ass. I mean, I've met people within the theatre industry and in other industries that are like that.
Yeah.
You know, come face to face with them. And at that high level, I just thought it was such a beautiful way of showing kind of like, you know, the celebrity star and the fading of that, and then the people that were kind of at the top with the power. And I love the idea, going really quickly back to the Oscars, right?
Yeah.
I love the idea that the reason it was snubbed is because there's a Dennis Quaid like character out there that's like, oh, they got me. They bloody got me.
I'm not having this.
Yeah,
no.
like oh, you know, someone's going, that really looks and sounds like Jack, and Jack's like, this ain't fucking winning shit. That's my narrative. That's how I've solved it.
Yeah, totally. Like one film's not commenting on the Hollywood thing and it gets snubbed, and another film is, I mean, if anything, it's giving us a deeper look at like the class system, you know, and where does an escort sit, etc. But again, it's a story that's been told already, you know. But anyway, never mind.
We've got you, Demi.
Yeah.
We're here for Demi.
Yeah, if you want a Strange Man Oscar, we can put something together.
I would hand make that.
Yeah, totally.
Out of wood. What other material do I have to make it?
Yeah. Okay. So, oh God, there's honestly, I don't know where to start. I was just like scribbling notes down all over the place, and it's all just a mess now.
Kind of like how she ends up in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how my brain felt.
Yeah.
Like after I watched it, just like, you know, I felt like I was on the star, slowly fading
Yeah,
away.
totally. Yeah, it was a slog to get through, but I never was regretting this, or it wasn't a struggle to get through.
Yeah.
But it was a lot, and I think that's because of the way in which you're able to feel things in this. You know, I think that's so important, and like in these other films that we've perhaps talked about, like I'm not having that sort of like relationship, like emotional relationship with what I'm seeing. But this one really is totally fine with getting you to focus on those negative emotions and stuff. And it becomes a roller coaster ride, doesn't it? Because of that.
It's a journey. And like, it's not a slog because it's not a beautiful film, because it is. It's a slog because it's like, you know, you kind of go down and it hits the depths, and then at one point Demi Moore's character rings someone to go on a date. Like, oh, okay. And then she's slowly kind of like character assassinating herself and going back through and I was that scene killed me, and I was like, just go on the date, love. Just
totally.
Just get out there. Just go and do it.
It was the point. It was the turning point for her. You either do that or things ramp up and there's no turning back.
Yeah.
And how interesting is that? Is essentially like what they were basically saying with the use of the substance and stuff, that it's no turning back. You know, if you think of like some obvious parallels with the injections and everything like that, this is also people talking about how people can inject themselves with Botox and stuff like that, and then your face is fucked, basically.
Yeah, like you're never going to get back the bone structure that you had before.
Yeah. And I mean, I started to think like it was uncomfortable for me and my wife to sit there and watch some of the scenes for a number of different reasons. But also I just wondered, like, you know, can you imagine, like, I don't know, I hate to like throw shade at different areas and stuff like that, but like an Essex couple or something like that, where like, you know, the woman's got like the Botox and stuff. It's like, Ricky, what the fuck have you taken me to?
Yeah. I love that image.
Like, oh, fucking hell. Oh, what have I done?
I love the idea that like he's a little bit smart. He's like a Joey Essex character. He's quite smart, and he's done it on fucking purpose.
Yeah,
it's like, you inject yourself. Well, I'll show you what the end result is.
Yeah. Oh God. But like, you know, there's scenes, right, like that reminded me an awful lot of when I would like on the weekends be watching TV with like my grandparents, and my nan would be there, and there'd be a not necessarily an R-rated, at least a 15, maybe an 18 at times, probably just the 15s really, but there would be like sex scenes and stuff like that, and like my nan would always easily break the tension because she'd have a catchphrase. She'd go, "Oh, they always have to be slopping. They're always slopping." And every time now, like that's ingrained in me. Whenever I see like sex scenes or a woman bearing all, I've just got my nan's like voice in my head. That's a callback to last episode. I've always got her in my head going, "They're slopping again, Carl. They're slopping. Yeah, yucky slopping." So yeah, like it's uncomfortable, isn't it, for both genders?
Yeah.
Both key, I guess, like genders there. You know, it's uncomfortable for the male to consider the male gaze and how we objectify women, and then it's uncomfortable for a woman to look and think how they, I guess, are forced to objectify their own bodies.
Yeah.
To sit in front of the mirror and basically look at me. How do I compare to other people?
But at no point, because a lot of these films can come across as quite like pretentious and preachy, right? And although we're talking about the message, I didn't feel preached at.
No.
At any point. I didn't feel like ham-fisted either. It was very clear, it was very well done, but I didn't feel like they were like, "Here, take my message. It was a narrative, it was a good narrative, it was well thought out, and it was really well delivered. And I didn't feel like when I felt sad and when I felt kind of all these things, it felt deserved. Right?
Yeah.
I felt like I was going on this journey. And like you said, Demi Moore's not a protagonist, but I definitely felt for her.
Yeah, I mean, I'll retract that. I think she is a protagonist. It's just that she's not meant to be like who we aspire to be.
She's not a Mary Sue, is she? She's definitely not a perfect person in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. We've got to learn from that story and not repeat her behaviour, essentially.
It's almost like, a modern Aesop fable in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Because it doesn't have a nice ending. It's just that kind of like, don't do what I did, folks.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like it, because it's that going back to those kind of stories where it's not like, oh, but then this happened and everyone's okay and it's a really satisfying ending.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just suck, right?
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yeah, I mean, so I think from a technical level, this film was really strong as well.
Yeah.
Okay, some real beautiful shot cinematography, and of course, like the editing was purposeful.
Yes.
Again, it's like, how are you giving Anora a best editing or even best film if you're not considering the substance for that as well? It's like, if you think about like the nature of editing, the nature of taking one shot, okay, and making sure that the audience feels an emotional connection between one shot and another, okay? You have what the Russians, funnily enough, Russian filmmakers at the turn of a century would consider the principles of editing, yeah? You've got contrast, you've got simultaneity, you've got symbolism, you've got leitmotif, when you've got a recurring process, everything like that. And then you've got another one, parallelism, where you've got one object that's juxtaposed against another object. So a good example of that would be, for any one of these, would be the idea of when in 2001 A Space Odyssey, when the monkey at the start throws the bone up into the sky and then it fades into a picture of a spaceship, you can make the connection as the audience. Yeah? So that's a perfect example. And then we look at films now that try to take these on board, try to take these elements on board, because they are like, they're basic principles of not only the most basic shit, because you don't get that in soap operas and other such of like bland films. You get them in films that take filmmaking and the art of filmmaking to a higher level and provide us with that element of storytelling that doesn't exist in a book, doesn't exist in other such things as well.
And editing is a principal storytelling device.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't even award it as a thing, right?
Absolutely. Unique to the genre.
And when you're, I don't want to badmouth the film, but when you're kind of saying you shoot from a wide and then it suddenly cuts to a close up and then back to a wide again because it's not all about the character. That is stuff we teach our students at level 3.
Yeah,
like that is not that is intention story making at the basic level.
Yeah,
and then you juxtapose that with the really creative shot types of
crazy shit.
Let's just go to like the pump it up bit with Sue.
Yeah.
That's the male gaze on acid, right?
Yeah.
But it's not bum for the sake of bum.
Yeah.
It's bum to show you how ridiculous this is.
It is, to look at the bum all of the time.
And then to kind of, there's a wonderful shot, and I'm not saying it because she's got a peachy bottom, which she does.
Yeah.
But there's a wonderful shot where her bum's in frame, and as it quite often is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It then kind of starts to really creatively pan towards the men for just like a second.
Yeah.
And you can see them like almost, tongues out, wild coyote, and they could very much have just punched in right to that, but they don't. They circle it back and go back to Sue to say, here's the intent, here's what's happening with the audience, but the focus is over here, guys. That's just so clever, because they could have took the easy way out and then just punched in and then cut back.
So you're talking the first time that this new model has a montage where we're seeing her on a day of work.
Yeah.
Now, if you compare that to the later one, now Demi Moore has gone into full sort of crazy mode. Yeah. She's already losing.
I'm going to call it crone mode.
Crone mode, that's good. And she's like, she picks up the cookbook.
And so I could discuss this sequence, Cal.
And then the sequence is a combination of I mean, this is where the term simultaneity will come in, because not only do you have montage and you have a complex process of contrast editing, parallel editing and things like that, but you also have two scenes working. It's so complex when you think about that as a storytelling device. You know, it's not something that you can achieve in a book form, in a written form. Like, I challenge anyone to like compare those scenes with something that you have in a written form or any other form and tell me that they're on the same level of storytelling ability. But the idea of Demi Moore cooking frantically French cuisine, I like the fact that it's French cuisine. I just think it's a bit more grotty because it's French cuisine, but that might be just me. But obviously, it's also a nod to the French cuisine, cooking, The Good Housewife, that sort of thing. I can't remember the name of the woman that had that like PBS show or whatever show it was. But yeah, so you have the scenes with the buttocks and stuff like that, but then you have this contrasted with very phallic sausages cooking, and you have the stuffing of the chicken.
The blood sausage scene over the pan was incredible.
The blood sausage though never like, I mean, that I thought that was going to be our image to show for this episode because it was two sausages, two strange men. But no, I've got like a better idea. But it's just like, it's so grotty and it's like a mixture of a poop and a dick. Like, it's the two things together. Do you know what I mean? Like,
poopy dick,
Poopy dick, yeah. But the stuffing of the chicken, like the point in time where you have it up against, like, she's bent over. And then we cut straight to, like, the very, very rough stuffing of a chicken. And it's like the image is so graphic. And, like, the chicken, stuffing the chicken, if that's separate, then that's just suggestive, okay? But when it's immediately from one shot to another, it's grotesque pornography. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you're not actually showing anything. And it's like, it was a point in time where I had my mouth open. Do you know what I mean? Not salivating, but just like shock.
What?
Do you know what I mean?
You do what you do when
I just really wanted to eat some chicken. Do you know what I mean?
It's for me, it's the bit where she's kind of holding the sort of like, the thing of it, and she's almost like picking, just the whole scene. You're right, it's beautiful, but I had to do that scene in stages.
Yeah, like, really.
I thought the prawn bit at the beginning was bad.
Yeah, totally.
And if we're considering like what this film does well, and if it was up to me, what Oscars it would go for, I'd even chuck it in for sound design.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched Tim and Eric. I'm gonna mention it in the next episode when we talk about like metamodernism and that sort of stuff. But like Tim and Eric, like they love a bit of sound design. It's a show that's like comedically dumb.
I've seen it.
Okay, but like there'll be so many scenes where they just, when people blink, they add a sound effect, yeah. And this film had so much sort of like Tim and Eric vibe to it, okay? Like the over-pronounced sound effects. So do you remember that point in time in the film where she opens up the cookbook finally and she has Dennis Quaid like just kind of hovering presented there, like with like a gradient attached to it and stuff like that, so it's just hovering. It's so just sort of like tacky. Do you know what I mean? But it's a tacky thing for a tacky guy, isn't it? You know, it just had so many things going on. You know, it was just really interesting to just have that all just quickly thrown at you. And for that, basically, is this a debut for the director? I didn't even have a chance to even look at the director.
I don't know. I don't believe that they've done a lot though.
I will search this up whilst you give us filler. Go.
Right. So my filler, I want to kind of keep with the sound design thing, right? And I want to talk about the absolute sexy sound effect that they have whenever the substance like is mentioned.
Okay.
Like the little zinger at the start and the zinger at the end. The blue. And whenever it's kind of, you know, whenever you see the logo on there and whenever they're kind of showing all the kind of like really nice kit being put together, there's this really nice sound effect, and it really sold me on the world building of it. Like you get this beautiful looking briefcase, it goes to this little hovel, and then there's this clinical place, and you get this beautiful looking like briefcase and the substance, and it looks all branded. I really felt like this could be a real shady product.
Yeah, it was really nice, wasn't it? Production design wise, really good.
Yeah, and I just absolutely adored everything about every sound effect, every visual aspect, every location. Like the location of her apartment. What an incredible space.
Yeah, with that view, etc. Really, really
long
nice.
Corridors for that epic kind of fight scene at the end.
And when she wakes up, when the younger version of herself wakes up after a long period of time, and the windows are all covered, and there's food everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, it was honestly, I'm gonna start doing that to my son when he's playing with food. Control yourself.
Yeah. Oh no, it's really good. So director-wise, I'm gonna mention her name. She needs a name check here.
Let's get her on.
Coralie Falguiet. I'm just assuming. I believe she's French or something like that. Yes, French. This is our first directing film.
Wow.
She has written before then. She's written a film called The Revenge. But yeah, this is her directorial debut. I am so going to the cinema to watch whatever she makes next.
Absolutely.
In
fact, we're going to follow her career. But as long as we're doing this podcast, we will review. This is a promise.
But this might be a magnum opus. Do you know what I mean? We had that with Richard Kelly. Yeah. So
I hope not.
Yeah.
I think she's got a really exciting vision, but it might be that all of her kind of things work within this particular thing, and maybe doesn't. If I'm thinking about applying this to a different concept, like some of the visuals might not work in a different type of film.
Yeah.
But I really hope that she continues to make really cool kind of commentary films.
And I appreciate that people embracing these sort of things, because just the absurdist elements of it and the comedy that kind of is out of place with the message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If this film was made by someone who didn't have these comedic sensibilities, it would be a completely different film, wouldn't it? But you've got films like, for example, Sorry to Bother You, which we will cover at some point in time, and this film as well, that are happy to have these ideas of racism and feminism and the male gaze and stuff like that, and just turn it on its head for an audience and create something that is fun and gets the point across really well. It was just, it was just a pleasure to see this sort of thing. There's been things like this in the past, but I don't necessarily feel like we've been able to get to something at this sort of level that's had.
That's not technically correct. Carl,
yeah, because you have Everything Everywhere All at Once, for example. Yeah.
But just the nature of this film as a body horror, you have suggested a handful of films to me before the podcast, and what the first thing I thought was, bloody hell, he's done it to me again, right? So for a little bit of context, you suggested Brain Dead to me, which is a Peter Jackson zombie film. Yeah, that film's freaking gross. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good,
but it's gross. And when the person was birthed. When Sue was birthed, I thought, oh, he's done it again. Yeah. And the prawn scene, and I was like, he's got me.
Yeah, totally. There's major comparisons to make between Brain Dead and this film. The big finale with all of the blood. Yeah.
And saggy boobs.
The saggy boobs, yeah. Someone coming out of someone else. Yeah. The eating scene. Oh, lovely bit of custard.
I really hope you were not going to bring that up. I mean, it's my fault. Yeah. But I'm going to be gipping all afternoon now.
Yeah. But look, if you've not seen Brain Dead, everyone, you need to go see that. I can't make any more references to it, unfortunately, because you might not have seen it. But there's so many parallels between Brain Dead. That's for us to compare films. That might not necessarily be on purpose, but there is definitely some interesting purpose references. Now, a big obvious one would be Carrie.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the ending is set up to be an homage to Carrie. She's basically a prom queen sitting up there, and it doesn't really make sense, does it? Really, when you think of like how the Hollywood structure is and what things are available, like Oscars and stuff like that. I mean, obviously, she's a fitness instructor, and we don't put people in this high regard in regards to fitness and that sort of thing. I don't know anyone. She was basically like a Jane Fonda, like. And that's kind of what they were doing with Demi Moore's character there, is to do the whole the Jane Fonda calisthenics sort of thing that she used to put out there, but as if that was like some sort of like major like popularity thing. We don't have that.
Because it's strange, isn't it? It's because you saw the star and you assumed, oh, Hollywood actress that's now doing the fitness stuff. Yeah. But no, the fitness stuff was the whole
She was
stick.
always that. Yeah.
And they were looking for more. I mean, we're not in America. We don't watch American TV. How popular is that? Is that really like the height you can go in Hollywood? I don't see much of it apart from like smaller networks. And they definitely didn't make out like they were a small network.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, it was a pastiche of all sorts of different careers and stuff like that. They were just wanting the main core, which would be the same if you're like a model, if you're a Hollywood like starlet, etc. They just turned it into something that would make sense for everyone. Yeah. Every sort of like female major celebrity role, you know, where your body is, you know, on display. I mean, how long will it be before Sydney Sweeney like releases like a what's the word, you know, fitness thing? Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe she'll never need to.
Or maybe she's dropped it already. It's just happened.
We just don't know, do we? Yeah. Or Mickey Madison even. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. They're probably not going to be honest with you. But, you know, in the past, we had that, didn't we? We had Jane Fonda doing that, for example.
There's so many, like, celebrities in leotards all trying to sell their, like, VHS tapes, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a point in time when you didn't necessarily have the Me Too movement, and you had people essentially acting like that without anyone, you know, batting an eyelid and stuff, you know.
Do you think the film would have worked better as a period piece?
I like the fact that it didn't feel like a period piece. I like the fact that it had a combination of different periods within it, like a modern sensibility, or sorry, like an 80s sensibility, but a modern look. I think, you know, like she also kind of like the way in which she was sort of isolated from people and stuff like that, and the way in which her apartment looked like. She also reminded me of like Troy McClure from The Simpsons or BoJack Horseman, you know, as in like, you know, you kind of sort of like in your penthouse and you're like away from society and stuff like that. But they're like two characters that are parodying the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I liked how it looked modern, and it had that 80s sort of sensibility, and it was like a pastiche or a parody of that, you know? And if anything, like, we've got to ask ourselves questions to like, has like modern sensibility in and out of that workplace, has that really like changed? You know? Wow. You know, I keep saying wow. You know, it's been ages since I've watched this film, but it's still like nothing's topping it.
I mean, I watched it last night, so it's like it's right there.
It's ingrained, yeah.
I'm a little bit traumatized. So.
There was another reference. Did you pick up on the Shining stuff with the corridor and the carpet?
Oh yes, yeah.
So like, I mean, like, we're going to watch The Shining at some point in time, and we're also going to watch the documentary Room 237. Yeah. And it kind of goes into like, you know, a lot of the production design and how it can lead to like Easter eggs and stuff like that, and like hidden messages and stuff. But here, I could not get the connection other than the fact that later on there's lots of blood. And in The Shining came out like at the end of the 70s, start of the 80s. I think it's 1979 when it came out. And it was the elevator blood scene was a big thing, you know. Now, I think it seems tame, to be honest with you. But what were we doing with that scene and like the carpet, you know? Was that... Because it was unmistakably a shining carpet. Do Do you know what I mean? Like the Overlook Hotel and the patterns and stuff like that. You don't do that without making that reference, you know? And so, like, what was it? What was the reference? Was it essentially basically saying there's going to be blood at the end of this corridor? I think there was actually an elevator at the end of the corridor. There was at least a door at the end of the corridor that she was continuously moving through, you know? But in the film, I couldn't necessarily see any other connection to The Shining other than that, you know, and we quickly moved on to other references and stuff like Carrie.
I think, you know, as an emerging filmmaker, obviously The Substance is a massive film, but she's clearly a little bit like, you know, the old guard, like Tarantino. She clearly has watched a lot of films.
Yeah, she's watched a lot of films, so she wants to add them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you've got Tarantino, who's perhaps focusing on one particular film or genre to homage, she's wanting to do the opposite and just throw loads into the mix and mix it up in a big blender.
I do think it works.
I like it, yeah.
Blender's a good reference because of how visceral stuff gets out of a blender. I think we're gushing so much, but I think we're sort of running out of time today. But we could go till the cows come home, really, with this one. I think
that kind of concludes me to a certain extent. But yeah, I mean, like, I just loved how it felt like it was a guilty pleasure to be looking at this as a man. And yeah, thanks for making me feel so uncomfortable. I already kind of like felt uncomfortable whenever I looked at nudity. I mean, we skipped past the nudity parts in Anora, didn't we?
We certainly, but that's because, you know, titties at work are never a
titties
good...
at work. We're not calling the episode Titties at Work.
Yeah, we bloody are.
No, it's all
I'm going to download the podcast, have it on a separate thing and call it Titties at Work.
Okay, so please tune in for the next episode where we're going to be talking about this film and films like this, and the idea of meta and metamodernism, the idea of referencing the self, etc. We're going to be looking at the origins of that, the roots, and yeah.
Remember to pump it up.
Remember to pump it up. Pump up our audience numbers, please. Tell your friends, okay? Get onto our Patreon. There is loads and loads of content there. We've just released another episode on there, and all of that's available. You can, you know, help us out with a monthly subscription, or there is options to purchase collections of other videos that we've got where we're just doing more of this shit, essentially.
More of this shit. What a sell. You want more of this shit? It's on Patreon. You can pay for it.
And yeah, you know, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time. That's me.
See you later.
See you later. Bye. Thanks for listening. Here's a disclaimer. We are not experts. We can easily get things wrong in an episode. Our intention is to explore and open up the possibilities for further exploration. Come find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube. We would love some interaction. Also, if you can consider supporting us on Patreon, that would help a bunch. Search for 2, that's number 2, Strange Men Pod, all one word. Until next time, keep it strange.